Hello everybody, Carol Briney with Briney on Blast. I've been asked to tell some monkey stories, so today I'm going to tell you about Pucha's tale. Pucha was about a 4-year-old, maybe 36 inches standing tall, black cat brown capuchin that we got a phone call to come and get her because she had just been taken out of a home where she had been not neglected but had been ignored, and her companion had died. So she'd been in a garage in a cage, and so come get her, do some rehab on her, I'll give her to you. So my son and I quickly built a cage out of 2x4s, welded wire, 2x4s and welded wire. It's about 5 foot square. We built it out on the deck. Our house was an L-shaped house that had a rectangular roof covering all of it, and it had a wraparound porch. So the back part of the house was about a 30-foot square that we ended up framing in for or putting wire on so the monkeys could play out there. So we built the cage. We had it off about 2 hours to pick Pucha up. They came out and they brought a small gray, like you carry your cat into the vet cage, and then here they came with her. So she was screaming and hollering and terrified and crying, and around her little skinny neck was about 1.5 inch leather collar, and attached to that leather collar was a chain link, a chain that the rings were every bit as big around as my little finger. And the chain was about 6 or 7 feet long, and it literally weighed more than she did, which was about 15 pounds. So she had to hold on to that chain, or she knew that she would strangle, or at least feared that. So they wad her up and put her in that little bitty cage, shut it, and they said, don't ever take this chain off of her if you want to control her. And it was like, what? This, that can't be right. She wasn't trying to attack them. She was terrified. So anyway, on the trip home, the 2-hour trip home, she didn't say a word. And we get there, and my son carries the cage around, and we're praying to God that when we open that cage door to let her in the big cage, that she'll go on in and not try to escape, because what are we going to do if that happens? So we go and we open it, and she sure enough just goes right in the cage, and we lock it. At that time, I didn't know enough about monkeys. I'd only been a monkey owner of a little white-faced black capuchin for a couple of months. So at that time, I didn't know she understood English. I didn't know she could bite through the wire. I didn't know she could undo the lock. I didn't know that she could just rip it apart. She could dismantle that whole cage so quickly, but we don't know that. We think we actually are caging an animal that might be aggressive. So had I known that, I would have known she wasn't aggressive. So anyway, I kind of talked to her for a minute, and then it's late, and I go in and I go to bed. About 2 o'clock in the morning, excuse me, there comes the most horrendous thunderstorm that I've ever been through in my life. We're out on the back of 40 acres with 650 acres of virgin timberland behind us. And there's this horrible lightning and thunderstorm that was just almost unbearable. So I lay there in my bed and I'm thinking, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. And then it dawns on me, I've got this monkey out there that even though she's under the roof, she's still outside with this horrific storm, and she must be terrified in these new surroundings. So I went out through the sliding glass doors, and walked up to her cage, and she got up on her shelf that we'd built about 4 foot off the ground, and she was there, and so I'm talking to her, and she's chittering back, and she reaches her hand out, and she's grooming my arm, and I'm grooming her arm, and we're chittering and chattering. And we did that for probably 10 minutes when I thought, I can't do this chain anymore. So I said, Pucha, if you will get up here and let me get to your collar, if you'll get in a position so I can get to your collar, I'll take that thing off of you. So she just gets in this submissive position, and the collar, the latch on the collar was facing me. So I reached into the cage and undid that and pulled it through the wire. And I said, as long as I'm in your life, you'll never see this again. And she was like, oh, great. So we spent the whole night grinning and chittering and chattering, and both of us just right up against the wire. And then the sun came up. About 2 days later, my husband came in off the road. He said, well, our priority today is to build her an indoor cage so she can go inside and sleep. And so we got busy. Now, capuchins, you don't want to spring anything new on them or startle them. They're just not the monkey for that. They were not the monkeys for the experiment with the paraplegic. That just happened to be the monkey that they had. So I think that one was a weeper. So we introduced the saw to her and let her kind of hear what it's going to sound like. We introduced the hammer to her. And every time he went to use either one, he would say Pucha saw, Pucha hammer. So we build it. She spends her time sitting on the bottom of the cage picking the hair out of her knee, because that's what she did when she got nervous. Directly, it dawns on me, I have a whole cart full of fresh strawberries in the refrigerator. So I go in and get the strawberries, and I come out, and they were really big. They were like right out of a strawberry field out of California. So I give her one. She's much, and eating it, and she gets through, she wants another one. So I give her another one. I'm sitting there eating a strawberry, and she's much. And so she gets up on that 4-foot shelf and asks for her third strawberry. So I give her another one. I'm talking to my husband, and all of a sudden her tail, her very own tail, the one that's attached to her brain and her body, wraps around her neck and jerks her off that shelf. She flips a somersault through the air, lands on the bottom. She's screaming jungle screams, and that her tail starts beating her across her back. It sounded like a hose that had cement in it. Whack, 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 and it echoed in her chest. Well, I'm not breathing now. I'm not even blinking. My heart has stopped. Same thing with my husband. And we're watching this tail beat this monkey and her scream. And then all this, and she can't get to it. She's bent down, protecting her head like this and screaming. Now we're up against 650 acres of virgin timberland. There can be hunters, children, anybody in there. And we have monkey screams that are echoing, I'm sure, for miles. So anyway, it quits beating on her back and grabs her by the throat. It wraps around her throat. She's like gasping for air, showing her teeth, trying to pull this off. She's very strong, trying to pull this tail off of her that's killing her. She pulls and tugs and pulls and tugs. She finally gets it off, and she proceeds to chew on it like corn on the cob and bite it and growl at it, beat it on the bottom of the cage. And it's like she's killing the tail. Good. Oh no, that's going to be a vet bill. How am I going to take her to a vet? Oh my God, oh my God. And I mean, just total panic. Like, what am I going to do about this? Right? There's got to be wounds on this tail, like bloody wounds on it. So anyway, directly she gets it, she's got it, she puts it underneath her feet, and she puts her feet over the tail. So their feet are long, and they'll bend in several joints, and they're strong. And so she puts both feet over the tail, and she's holding it down on the bottom of the cage, and it's flipping and flopping and trying to get away. And she's looking at me like, I got it, no problem. And so we go, okay. She holds her hand out. I go get the strawberry that was thrown out of the cage when the tail got her, and bring it back to her, and she's munching it, and I'm going, I'm not sure that's gonna hold that tail. And so we're forgetting, and we're talking a minute, and then guess what happens? She forgets about the tail, we start all over again. So we beat on the back, we choked, we chewed on the tail, we fought the tail, and she ends up going back up on the shelf for the third time. And it started all over, flipping her out. And so by then we're laughing, we're like crying, we're like can't breathe. What is this? And to try to comprehend that the same brain is running both of those things, and nothing's killing your monkey, and your monkey's not chewing on her own tail, is just almost an impossible endeavor to do. Anyway, she went through this 3 times. And finally, we get to look at her tail. There's no damage on her tail. It's like, she's looking at us like, what's your problem? What? You know, and we're going, oh my God, what the fuck, right? So anyway, that was the end of that. We finished her cage. And on the next tape, I'll tell you about taking her inside that night, making the decision to open the door and see who she was and take her in and introduce her to her nighttime cage. Her tail became a legend there around Hope, Arkansas, and people would come to see her and come to see, by that time we had 4 monkeys, they would come to see all the monkeys, and they would say, do you think the tail's going to show up today? And I'd glance over at Pook, and I would say, well, I don't know whether the tail will show up. And if she raised one eyebrow real quick like that, I knew the tail was going to show up, but I didn't tell them that. It's a whole nother thing about when she got company and her behavior, and some of it was just, oh my God, I had to talk my way out of. But anyway, that's a story of Pucha's tail, one of many, many monkey stories, but that's usually the one everyone wants to hear. So please share with your friends. Let's build this Briney's Blast. I'm going to try to post 2 reels a week, telling different kinds of stories, and I've got a pretty good menu to pick from. So please stay with me, help me build this. Comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.